Hey friends, it's your girl Annie F. Downs here with my friend Jen Fulwiler. We just finished recording our episode of That Sounds Fun podcast, but I had one more thing I wanted you to talk about, Jen. We talked a lot about your book, Your Blue Flame, and it's amazing. People are going to love it. But you just kind of passed over you and your husband, and that y'all have 6 kids?
We had 6 babies in 8 years.
I mean, that's incredible. Tell me how y'all met.
Okay, so we worked in high tech. And it's funny, he had this crazy background. So he grew up poor. He was raised by a single mother. And his mom told him, look, if you go to one of those fancy schools that I've heard about on TV, things might work out better for you than they did for me. He ended up going to Yale undergrad, graduating in 3 years with honors, Columbia Law School, Stanford Business School. And he studied in the Master's Computer Science program at Stanford, employee number 8 at a little company you might have heard of called Google. But if he'd taken that opportunity, he wouldn't have moved to Austin, which is where he met me. So I always tell him, honey, who needs to be a billionaire when you have me?
He could have been the number 8 employee.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't offered, but it was like they were taught, like he has, I have seen an email thread between my husband and the 2 guys who founded Google. I have seen that.
Okay, so then he gets to Austin. You're already in Austin.
Yes. And yeah, so I was already there. And because he had this prestigious background, and that was just not my background at all, it just didn't occur to me that we might start dating. We were friends and we went to coffee, and I would do things like—
company? Is that how y'all are working at the same company?
Yeah, we were. So I was a programmer, and he was in the product development side. And so we sat near each other at work.
Oh, okay.
And so I would do that thing where I would try to sound smart when we went to coffee together, and I would completely screw it up, and I would just sound like an idiot. I tried to use words that I don't really understand. Like at one point, Annie, I shouldn't admit that I said this, but I said, oh, my family likes to summer at the beach. Like I use summer as a verb, like we're fancy people. Like, no, we say at the Best Western. We summer at the Best Western. Like that's the truth. Yeah.
So y'all would just like go to coffee together. Were you in your 20s or were you in your 30s?
Yeah, so he's 7 years older than I am. So I was 23 and he was 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so y'all would just like go to coffee together as friends.
Yeah.
And then y'all transitioned from friends to dating?
Yes. And there were a couple of beers that, that helped at it after a work happy hour. But yeah, we'd been hanging out so much at that point. I think everyone else saw it before we did.
Yeah. Really?
Oh yeah. It was because we just got along so well.
Yeah.
It was talked about at the office.
Okay. So one of the things people talk about from a single girl point of view, one of the things people talk about is once a guy puts you in the friend zone, you can't get out. But that's not true, right? Or were you never really in his friend zone?
Oh no, I was firmly in the friend zone because he was convinced that his career could be in jeopardy because we worked together, and especially that I was pretty low on the totem pole and he was higher in the organization. So even before the Me Too thing, that was not considered a great idea.
Yeah.
So no, he had quite firmly friend zoned me.
So how did it switch? What happened?
It was just after enough time, it was just one of those things that we clicked so well and we had such great conversations. And it was just late one night. We'd been to some party and we weren't like super intoxicated or anything, but there'd just been a couple of beers and it just led to a conversation where it just kind of came out like, hey, I'm really into you. But here's what's funny, Annie, is our relationship has gotten a lot better in recent years. And since we've been married, like when we were first dating, it was really good. It was great. But I did not know the spark that we would eventually have at the time. And I don't know that I've ever seen that play out that way in another couple. We actually argued a lot when we were first dating. Yeah. And there was something, what I think it is, we both do well in a crisis, and having 6 babies in 8 years it's like just one long crisis. And so it's just kind of interesting that it wasn't until our relationship was put under extraordinary pressure that I realized how much of a spark was there between us.
That's amazing. So when y'all were arguing and dating, what made you not walk away?
A sense that I'd never find anyone else like him, because I'm so weird and quirky, and so is he. And there was just this feeling like when I'd be in a bad moment, when we'd be in the middle of an argument, I'd be like, he is intolerable and this is horrible, and I'll never be able to find anyone else I click with, so I guess this is just my life now.
So I guess this is my life.
Right.
It's just amazing to me how often people break up, and it's right and good, and how often people that you think, well, why didn't that make you break up?
Yeah.
They don't break up. And
Yeah.
so I just think, did y'all have breakups along the way, or did you not?
No, we didn't break up. And I think there was, I can't explain it except to say it was a God thing. It was one of those things where, we did plenty of things with just the dumb arguments we'd have and the just petty, I'd hold a grudge after an argument. I mean, we did a lot of things wrong, and I can't explain it except to say that I think that God looks out for fools. And I think that it was just kind of a God thing that it all worked out.
When you think about your book, Your Blue Flame, and when you think about your husband, tell me where that theory about a blue flame, that there's a thing that God has for you to do, where does that theory align with who you end up marrying?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I didn't know what my blue flame was, but here's what I would say is, whenever you meet someone who is life-giving in your life, they will fan your blue flame and they will encourage you in that, just as you should for them. And if you ever meet someone that it kind of feels like they're snuffing out your blue flame, that either with their overt actions or just, there's something about the relationship, and maybe there's even some toxic behavior that you're both into that you just don't have time for it anymore, or you don't have the inspiration, I would say that would be a pretty big red flag. Whereas if you meet someone who, whether it's through their words and their deeds or just their presence, is just really fanning that blue flame, because ultimately when you use your blue flame, you're the truest version of yourself. So this is another way of saying this person inspires you to fearlessly be the truest version of yourself. Yeah. And I would say that's a great sign for a relationship.
Oh, that's good words. Jen, thanks for doing this. I appreciate you.
This has been a joy. I love it. And I'm just so excited to be here.
You're the best. Thank you. And friends, make sure you grab a copy of her book, Your Blue Flame. It's very, very good.